can't have because he's not qualifying by the label, because in Israel, in order to get cannabis for epileptic seizures, you have to go through 5 different anti-epileptic drugs and still have seizures in order to get the license, the card, what you call the card. And the real story is that I said, okay, but you find me a doctor who will. And he says, okay. And he just, because we live in the same town and I know him personally, I met him a week afterwards, and it was Israel, August, 40 degrees. And I said, come here. I put him under a shade and I said, with a tree, and I said, now you find me a doctor. And he just made a few phone calls and find me a psychiatrist who treats people with post-trauma with cannabis and believes very much in the cannabis for post-traumatic, but he doesn't understand autism. So we went to him and he filed for Yuval license. It was over a year ago, and we had to appeal because in Israel autism is not a qualifying condition yet, it's on its way. And we started treating him with cannabis, and it was like magic. My son became a calm person, more concentrated, more initiative, having a smile on his face, and basically, I think over a year, he didn't show any self-injurious behaviors and any outbursts, which is for me and for him, it's a miracle. It's like a life-changing. You can live with him.
Yeah.
You can spend time with him without being frightened all the time.
So you don't have to now have an extra person there present all the time with you.
Pardon?
So now that he's calmer and doesn't have the outbursts, do you still have to have an extra kind of strong guy with you?
No, I just have sometimes, it's very funny because I still have the flashbacks of these times. It's like, I go with him, I drive with him, and suddenly comes a flashback how he attacked me on the main road, before the cannabis or stuff like this, which stays with you, which is very traumatic. But he's totally different now. I mean, he's still autistic, okay, but he's different. He's just a different person. He became peaceful. He sleeps better. He concentrates. He can sit in the living room and watch TV, which we couldn't see it before. He was just going up and down the stairs all the time, making noises and voices.
So that kind of obsessive compulsive behavior that's lessened.
Much lessened. But I must admit, we started the cannabis about a year ago, and I had not so many people to consult, because even though Israel is very good with cannabis, they still don't know autism, so they don't know really the strains or the ratios, and I had to go through quite a lot of trial and error and ask a lot of questions, researchers and people, until I got to the point where it's really working good for him. So we had our ups and downs with anxiety and hyper, but we never got the self-injurious and violent since then, which is a lot. But then when I saw what he did to Yuval, and because I'm active in many areas in Israel about promoting the autism, rights and legislation and having inclusive solution in community for them, I thought it's just not right. They medicate all those kids from a very young age, not to talk about the old ones, and they don't give them even the chance to have access to cannabis. I mean, which for us worked amazingly.
How did you, when you were starting, because, I mean, without even going into necessarily speaking about autism, generally when prescribing medical cannabis, dosing is very difficult, because it's not like taking an aspirin or an anti-epileptic drug that that you take, 400 milligrams or whatever twice a day. So how did you, when you first started?
I started with the experience we have here, because for epilepsy they did a lot of work here. It's a qualifying condition, and we have over, I think, almost 200 kids treated with cannabis for seizures. And we have an amazing mom she's also a clinical herbalist, and she was the one promoting the epilepsy for her son and the other kids. and she has a lot of experience. So she's my guide. I found her after a few months, and she was my guide into the strains and the ratios and exactly how to find what works for Yuval. But I have to say, in Israel, when you have a card, you're attached to a grower. You can move to another grower, and each grower have different strains. So we have to move, and now we are at the third one, and the one that worked for Yuval really good. I mean, we have to go through the first one. It was calming, but he totally lost his appetite, which is quite weird when you think of cannabis. But when we talk about high CBD strain for Yuval, because he has seizures. Then we moved to another grower with a different strain, and he became very hyper, very restless. Not violent, but very, very restless.
Right, and what was the ratio between CBD and THC with that
We
one?
started with very high CBD, okay, and we started with 30% CBD, which is the 20-to-1 CBD to THC. We move now to 6-to-1, which is still high CBD. But in the night now, Yuval gets high THC, like indica, it's called night oil, which makes him sleep much better. But this debate about how much THC, how much CBD, what really the strength, this is what bring me into the crowdfunding issue. Because once Yuval got the license and the card, and I saw how successful I was becoming active to get the Ministry of Health getting also the autism qualifying condition. And I got to meet Dr. Adi Aran, which is a researcher and the head of the neuropediatric unit in Shaare Zedek Hospital, who already wrote a research proposal. And I went with him to the head of the medical marijuana, medical cannabis unit in the Israeli Ministry of Health. And he showed them the research proposal while I was showing him videos of kids before and after the cannabis. And they were very, very attentive. But they said, okay, we'll get autism qualifying condition, but we want a research done. Because as much as Israel is very, very, good with medical cannabis, they still need some proof or some evidence to say it works for these kids. We don't give it to anyone. It's not that liberal. It's not, we don't have full legalization in Israel. It's still a dangerous drug here. So I'm working voluntarily with Dr. Adi Aran to get the kids at the preclinical trial. It's not really preclinical trial, it's just data gathering. So we have over, I think, 50-something children and adults with severe autism who gets now the cannabis from 3 different growers and strains. So we have better understanding when we start the research about what works for them.
So at the moment you're at the data gathering stage, and you've selected
but we still have a clue, and I must say the reason for the crowdfunding is that as a mother, I'm bothered. Because research needs funding, and usually business people or growers or whatever, when they put money, they want something for themselves, and which is legitimate, okay? But it's not always what our kids need. Like if you give a certain strain, which basically we know doesn't work as good as another strain, just because the grower has the money to put in the research, it wouldn't be in favor of our kids. I just want the research to take the strains and ratios, which will show how beneficial cannabis at certain ratios and strains, how beneficial it can be for autistic people, severely autistic people. And this is what got me to the crowdfunding thing, because I thought if parents have an influence over what will be given in the study, we can make sure it's a good study that goes in favor of our kids and not, for other interests. And also, we talk in a minute about CBD THC, but it's also whole plant versus isolating cannabinoids.
Can you explain that difference in the context of autism, for example?
Well, I can do it in the context of cannabis as a whole. Okay, we know this plant has 111 cannabinoids known in the scientific literature. Okay, we keep talking about CBD, THC because this is mainly what we know up to now. We have another few, okay, and this is mainly what most labs are able to check. But we also know that what Meshulam called the anchorage effect, that there's a lot of other cannabinoids and terpenes maybe that work or do something there to help our kids. And in order to understand really which cannabinoid work for our kid, it will take us a long time because you have to really, 111, it's a lot. If we try to isolate today CBD only or THC only, we know it doesn't work as well as the whole plant. But CBD only or THC only, you can do IP on it. You add another cannabinoid or something and then you write a patent and you go to the FDA and you can get great revenues for it, which I'm not against, but it's not the right time for us. And for me, it's going to be the first of its kind clinical research about cannabis and autism. And it must work because if it will say that eventually they will give clean CBD or just isolated cannabinoids and they say it doesn't work for autism, it would be devastating. It would be devastating because people wouldn't bother to read what exactly they gave. They would just read cannabis doesn't work for autistic people. And I look not only on Israel, I look around in the States, so many states doesn't have the autism as qualifying, most states there, doesn't have the autism as qualifying condition. I think only 2 states have there. And if parents or treatment people will have a piece of paper saying cannabis helps autism, think how helpful it will be for them to get the autism qualifying condition into their medical plans.
So it has big implications, potentially, this research globally.
There's a big implication and big risks, the way I see it, and I'm really into all the parties in this thing, okay? And also there's the debate about CBD and THC. We have the whole plant. I mean, I'm crowding for whole plant. I know whole plant is not attractive to investors, right? You can't get FDA-approved drug from a whole plant. You can't patent it. But this is at the moment what works for our kids. Another thing is the CBD-THC, because most researchers and doctors are very reluctant about high THC for young kids. Okay? I research a lot, except one research that took recreational smokers, that you don't know what they smoked and where they smoked it. There's no research really properly done. We do know that there's one researcher thing they gave high THC for cancer, kids with cancer, and most of them didn't get high. But there's still a lot of reluctance about THC. But if you read what parents around the globe who give their children cannabis with ASD say, these kids need the THC. So going for high CBD or CBD only, it's not working for our kids. We need more THC. How much is the debate, and it's also, when you give something, I'm a mother. I can say a lot of things, but still there's doctors, researchers who has the responsibility, and if something happens to a kid, it's, they will be the one to confront it, not me. So we have to go very gently with it, but still, I want to have, I want us parents to have influence on what strains and what ratios they give in the deep research.
So in the research, is there a kind of protocol in mind already? How will you implement the whole plant concept into the research?
At the moment, the research of Adi Aran, who received all Helsinki and all approvals, is talking about 20 to 1 and 6 to 1 CBD to THC, which is high CBD. It's not finalized yet, not the grower, not, a lot of things that aren't finalized yet. And I do believe that if we have the funding, we can help, influence about that too. like we know already which strains here in Israel do good work for epileptic kids. So we might as well try that, not necessarily the strains that this grower has the money to put in for the research. I'm putting it too deep into the all the sides of this thing. But what I can say is that I work voluntarily. The crowdfunding money is going into a non-profit I'm part of, which is called Kvutzat HaShavim. 5% will go to the non-profit as overhead for all our expenses, and the rest totally goes to the research who will do good for our kids. I'm not doing it for any financial reasons. I just know we need to help these kids.
And is there an amount in mind that you have to reach in order to move
we'll
forward?
have to fundraise, I think, something between $150,000 to $200,000. And any additional amount, we can do more groups, more strains, really check it thoroughly for a whole plant for these kids and learn more and more what really works better for them. Because we don't really know that right now. All we have is a lot of anecdotal stories all around the world.
And just to clarify then, so at the moment you say you're at the data gathering stage, so when you get the funding to move forward to this research, will it be a stage 1 clinical trial, or what would...
Yeah, it will be a proper clinical trial. It's planned at the moment. If you talk about Adi Aran's trial, it's 120 severely autistic kids and adults from the age of 6 till 20-something, 3 groups of 40, which will be given one group, I guess, at the moment he's going for clean CBD, which this is the part which I don't believe so much in, but he's the researcher, I'm a mother. One whole plant, but we have to influence what whole plant and what ratios, and one placebo. And the fundraising is for adding more groups, for adding more strains, more ratios, so we can really check thoroughly. And I'm collaborating with Professor Dedi Meiri, which is I think he's one of the leading researcher in the cannabinoid field. He has a very state-of-the-art lab in the Technion, in the Israeli Technion. So he can really do the profiles of the whole 111 or the full profile of a certain strain, not only CBD, THC, CBD, and CBDA. He really looks into the complexity of the plant.
And how about the terpenes? Is that something that's important for this study?
I have no idea. Because we don't know, we need the whole plant. If I knew, I wouldn't be opposing so much cleaning and taking only separate cannabinoids. I'm not about, I know all the people, about against pharma and standardization, and we need something from the earth, and I respect this attitude, but this is not the reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I know that for now, these kids need a whole plant. I know that if you start isolating only CBD, only THC, it doesn't work for them as well. And high CBD sometimes, a lot of time, makes them bounce off walls. Like if you give them the dosages of CBD that you give for epileptic kids with no ASD, they become hyper. And the kids with seizures doesn't become hyper from it. So there's something there works differently.
And so just to clarify then, so I have it clear in my own mind, so in terms of the kind of protocol that the researcher has decided on already, he has the funding for that. So what you're raising money for with the crowdfunding is to extend the strains to include more whole plant varieties. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And because it's something you're doing is very empowering for parents, right? I don't know, have you heard of any other instances of research of this kind that's been driven by a parent group?
No. I don't. I'm in touch with a lot of American mothers who really, really want this research to work. But I don't know anyone who did crowdfunding, but I also think it's because Israel is the main place to do clinical research with cannabis today. Because of our regulation are easier. You can't do that in the States. There's very few states where you can do proper cannabis research, and the Israelis are quite open-minded for that. I must say.
Why do you think that is? How has this come about? That
I think we're small and quick, very startup nation in this. We're survivors, and then you go to other countries, it's more heavy, all the regulation until you move something. And here you just go to the head of the unit and you close things with it and you just make them go. And also I believe Meshulam. I think Meshulam is a very important figure here because he's the one who started the Israeli medical cannabis plan. I even can tell you that when the mothers of the epileptic children who was treated with the oil had a problem because they wanted to get also card for inhale, for vaporizing, because the oil, until it works in the body, it takes about an hour. And when you evaporate, it's immediate. And because they needed it for kids once, when you have a seizure, you can't wait an hour. And, the clerks in the Ministry of Health said, no, the parents will take it for themselves, We will see our kids seizuring and we'll smoke pot, right? So they had to go to Meshulam. And once Meshulam was in the picture, it just went through. And this kid can get vaporizer now. And, the flower is not the oil, which is... So you can see he has a lot of influence here over what's going on.
And so what form does Yuval take his medication at the moment, his cannabis medication?
Yeah, he gets the oil. Yuval can evaporate, and he also doesn't need it because we give him 3 times a day, morning, noon, and evening. Morning and noon he gets like a combination of 20 to 1 and 6 to 1, a few drops from each whole plant. And then in the evening we give him 6 to 1 CBD because the CBD makes him awake. A lot of kids get awakened from it. It doesn't make them sleep. And then we add an oil with much more THC. And it's funny because you give him 3 drops, he's like very smiley and giggly. And then the 4th one, he would boom, go to bed.
And just this idea of this potentially, inspiring other parent groups to do something similar. I mean, what have you learned? What kind of advice could you give to parents who might want to do something similar in terms of the crowdfunding and being so proactive?
To learn the subject really thoroughly, to understand also the limitation of the institutions. Like, I would love this research to include a group of only THC, let's say. I'm not, but I'm just saying. But I understand that it wouldn't happen now. It wouldn't happen because they don't have enough experience about high THC with kids. It's not about what I believe in. It's about what's possible. But I think parents like the influence everywhere, in everything. Even promoting the rights of disabilities, it's always come from the people who care the most. And I think also in this treatment, because it's so much about whole plant and no money in the whole plant, so they immediately go to pharma and IP and isolated cannabinoids, we shouldn't let it happen. We should first see our kids, what's good for them. Afterwards, think how to make money out of it. It's not the time now.
And also, I mean, talking about living in Israel, where it is possible. I mean, you've gone from autism not being considered a condition suitable for medical cannabis to going through specific channels. And has it been recognised now, or it's about to be recognised?
What happened with autism as qualifying condition is it's not like clear cut. When I started with Yuval, we had to appeal, and then he got his card under mercy treatment, which drives me nuts. I mean, you had no mercy giving him all these antipsychotic drugs, but in order to get the cannabis, he had to qualify for mercy treatment, my son. But I can see now that it's parallel. Like the Ministry of Health announced autism is going to get into the book and being qualifying condition. There is a subcommittee sitting, the head of it is Dr. Adi Aran, to set the criteria, like who will be, it's not only ASD, it's really behavioral issues, people who already got like 2 medications before, and with severe behavioral issues. So it's on its way. But what I see that, like, we have the kids who get now the card because of the data gathering through Dr. Adi Aran, but we also have adults who somehow, some here and there, a psychiatrist or someone apply for them, and they do get the cannabis. So you see they started in the unit being open to autism, even though we don't have yet the qualifying condition.
So there's a degree of flexibility.
Very big degree of the flexibility. I mean, once you see someone who's really severely autistic and already got medication and is still suffering, they would approve it. It's. I think they are very compassionate.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the word.
And I mean, obviously, there's still a need for clinical trials, but they do acknowledge when there are sufficient cases of anecdotal evidence that that has value as well, it would seem.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are lots of countries where medical cannabis isn't available to any conditions. So, I mean, what would you say, for example? I mean, I'm British, and
I'm half British.
Right. Okay.
Well, I think Britain is one of the worst in this case, from what I've learned. I think it's terrible, and I'll say something very harsh. The way I see it now, if I was British and I had a son, I would do anything I can to help him. And it's not right that there's no really a lot of pressure on the institution to give people this plant. We know it doesn't have the side effects as other. Just you have to understand it's a medicine. I'm not into the debate of legalizing for legalization for recreational reason. It doesn't understand. I don't understand in that. It doesn't interest me. Even though I think I don't understand how come alcohol is okay and cannabis not, but leave it aside. But as a medicine, we know it has value. How can you deny people from this? Kills me.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, I don't know if you're aware, in the UK, until recently, CBD has been available, sort of buying it online or what have you, because it's been classed as a food supplement. So that's the way people have been able to access it.
I'll make a confession. Before Val got the card, I already filed for a card, but I didn't. It was appeal and it took time, and I went to visit my aunt in London, and I ordered, and I got to Israel, CBD oil for Yuval from England. So,
but that situation has now changed because in the last month, the Medical Healthcare Regulatory Agency has recognised CBD as a medicine, which sounds amazing because it is. But what that means is that now CBD producers in the UK have to have a marketing licence, and also it has to go through the three-stage clinical trials. So actually they've just changed it now from basically the 1st of January 2017 until producers have complied with these stipulations, which are very difficult to comply with. CBD will no longer be available in the UK from UK producers. It will be an unlicensed medicine.
This is devastating because it even helps, headaches or anxiety or little things. I'm not talking of the whole plant with high THC, but the CBD you had there, I think it was less than 0.3 THC in it, right? This is why you could buy it.
That's right, yeah.
And I think it's terrible. I mean, but by the way, also in Israel, CBD products aren't legal. You have to have the medical card. You can't get the CBD only. But look, if they do it and then they open a big and liberal medical cannabis program, then maybe it's better. But to make people not have this and not have the other options, it's, kill me. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of on the one hand giving with one hand, saying it's medicine, and then just taking away with the other. It's, it is very difficult to understand. And you have some very good English products, by the way. I check them. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good ones. They did wonderfully to some people I know. The question is, can doctor now prescribe it, or it just wouldn't be available in the market?
No, it just wouldn't be available. No, I mean, doctors have never prescribed it. As far as I know, most doctors have never heard of it, actually. It's just now it won't be available. It will be an unlicensed medicine until it becomes licensed. But the steps that need to be taken in order for it to become licensed, it's almost impossible to do unless a big pharma company does it. I guess that's the thing.
And you have GW. It's a British company, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So
the direction is quite clear in the UK, and it's I'm not very happy about it, I must say.
Yeah, it's sad because also, I mean, in the same way that, you just have these kind of incoherencies. So medical cannabis is still has this, the status of being non-therapeutic, having no therapeutic value, and yet CBD is a medicine, but now no one can take it. So it's like, it just defies logic.
Do it the other way around. First authorize it and then take it off, just bring it into the market, more license, more under control of what you have there and stuff like this.
Well, I guess it's this idea of evidence-based medicine. So I guess my question is there an argument that when there is sufficient anecdotal, or can there be sufficient anecdotal evidence to sort of give an alternative to going through the rigorous 3-stage clinical trials with double-blind placebos and randomised, etc.?
I have research. I have a lot of research about CBD, about him being used as antipsychotic, as medicine in so many areas. There's research enough done about it. There's no side effects or long-time side effects like all the drugs, which makes me think there's a lot of power to pharma in the UK and not enough to the people. Sounds like this to me.
Yeah.
Because I must say that here, I am in touch with all the over 40 parents who give cannabis oil to children, and it's not only comes from the institutions and the pharma, and a lot of parents wants the doctor to say to them, you take this and this in this box, and it will happen this and that. Which doesn't happen even with antipsychotic drugs, right? It's also trial and error. But the need to be like somebody will tell you and not go through trial and error comes not only from the institutions, it also comes from the patients. And with cannabis, it's a trial and error. So you have to take more responsibility on the treatment. Like, to understand, you have to take the responsibility.
And then,
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, and also there's an additional responsibility when you're giving it to people who are non-verbal. So that responsibility ultimately, comes from kind of, I guess, being intuitive. And obviously there are certain signs that are obvious, but when someone can't communicate, actually.
But they give it also the antipsychotic drugs. So the cannabis has less side effects. So this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It reminds me about, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, Yuval neurologist Professor Kormer was on sabbatical somewhere, and I went to another doctor, which is very serious, senior in epilepsy. And I come there with a 20-year-old, severely autistic, epileptic kid with a lot of anxiety and a lot of, and I say to her, Doctor, what do you think about cannabis? And she looked at me and she said, well, there's research that shows it might affect cognition. IQ. And I looked at her and I said, Doctor, PhD at Harvard, next reincarnation. Okay? Now, what are you talking about? You give medication, you give people things that are much worse, and and something that is so many people, and you have enough CBD, you have enough research. It's not like THC, by the way. It's not psychoactive. On the opposite, it's an antipsychotic drug. If you want, I can email you the paper I have about it. I can't see any reason not to give it to people. I can understand the control. Like there's a lot of products in the market. They are very expensive, and some of them are hot, like everywhere.
Can you just to kind of try and encapsulate the difference between Yuval, how he was before taking cannabis, and how he is now? I mean, possibly what was a kind of really, really low point, something that sticks in your mind? I mean, you were talking about how, you know, that actually it sounds like probably you might have a bit of post-traumatic stress from like flashbacks and things of moments that happened, but was there a particular low point when it was like, my God, this can't go on as it is?
Well, I think people who doesn't live with the severe autism can't really understand what it means. It's life in the shadow of hell. You live with a person you adore and love, and he's restless and anxious, and he shouts, and he goes up and down, and you don't understand what he wants, because the basic thing is communication. And he drives the whole house crazy. Leave aside the self-injurious and the meltdowns. I'm just talking on your daily thing. Just like hectic. And then suddenly you find something who make this person still autistic, but so much calm and easy and listening, so he responds better. He heard what you say because he's more available, because he's not so anxious. So I can't even compare the two, you know?
So he seems like a different person.
I could say that, yeah. Yeah, no, you know what? This is the person, this is my son, without all the distractions that comes along with the autism.
So it's like you finally met your son after 22 years.
Yeah, he even started typing, saying what he wants. I told you about it. He said, like, he typed today, I'm becoming more independent, which is, whoa, he's 23. We've done so much work with him, you know, and he never communicated his wants and, needs.
And for him as well to be able to communicate, I mean, he's going to grow in confidence and grow as a person, isn't he?
I hope so. You know, he's 23. If you ask, I get a lot of younger kids, parents who ask me about the cannabis, and I believe cannabis has also healing treatment, influence. We hear sometimes about cases of real big progress, but you know what? Let's wait with this. Just let them have a better quality of life to begin with. Afterwards, we'll check, if we can really heal them or help them really become more verbal, more focused, less distracted. But let's start somewhere.
Mm.
Doing in this video, we're going to learn how to make a Himpy bucket and how to use it, how to grow with Himpy bucket. That's the first part of the video. Then I'm going to go into some other information of different types of Himpy buckets you can do and different things you can do with Himpy, like get away with watering every other day rather than watering every day and stuff like that. So, and a bunch of really other useful information of the hows and whys it works that will make you a better grower. But first, we'll go to the first part of the video. If that's all you want to watch, that's fine. But if you want to stick around for more information, then do that. All right, so the first thing is, in order to make a Himpy bucket, is all you need is a bucket, some sort of container. I recommend either a round or a square container. I don't recommend oval containers and things like that because they don't. I've tried them and I don't get as good as yields from them. The roots seem to have a harder time growing in that shape for some reason. Anyway, so all you do is you get a bucket and then you want to drill a hole about 2 inches from the bottom. Now I'll talk about different ways you can figure out where you want your hole to be and how to do that. But for now, simple. About 2 inches above the bottom, drill your hole there. Use a drill bit about the size of your pinky. Drill a hole there. If you don't have a drill bit and you can't get a hold of one, you can take a piece of metal that's about the size of the tip of your pinky or so, maybe a little bit smaller. Hopefully it has a point to it a little bit, and it does have a point though, but heat it up really hot with a blowtorch or something like that, and then it's red hot, and it'll just go right to the plastic, make your hole, you're good to go. There's other ways to make holes in plastic, be inventive, but honestly, drill bit is the easiest, but however you want to do it. Once you have the hole in there, then all you have to do is fill this up with like perlite or cocoa or a mixture of the two. I'll talk about the benefits of them, but let's just say perlite. That's usually the traditional way of doing Himpy. Fill this up with perlite, and then you have your hole drilled there. What you do is you just pour the water in there. I have water in here right now. So let's say you pour, this is a 2 liter, fill it up to 2 liters. This is a half gallon. Start pouring it in there until you see the water start coming out your hole. Once the water comes out your hole, stop watering it and go, okay, minus whatever it is. So you start with 2 liters, and after it came out the hole, you